What is up, gang? Mr. B here, bringing another sweet, wicked, awesome math video. In this video, I'm going to take you through giving like a general function with a, b, h, and k in it, sort of rearranging it into the proper form, and then describing the transformations, and then discussing how you find the mapping rule from that. All right, so hopefully this video helps. I'm on the clock here today. I'm trying to keep these videos short as possible. As always, if this video helps you in just the tiniest little bit, please, please, please subscribe, share, like, all that kind of fun stuff. All right, here we go. Bam! Into the screen. Let's do it. So I got some new software happening here today, so I don't know exactly how this thing is going to work, but we'll see if it goes according to plan. All right. So we got a question here that's given to us. It says, the graph of f of x is transformed to an image with an equation 4y plus 12 equals f of negative 3 over 1 x plus 2. Describe the transformations and write the mapping rule. So we got this equation over here that in my class I call it like a general function. So it doesn't have a specific function. It's not like a quadratic or an absolute value. It's just a general function, hence the f. So the beauty thing about understanding these general functions is that you could never see a function like a log or a sine or a cosine before, and you can graph it using these techniques. So that's why we spend some time in advanced math doing things like this. So you might be doing something similar in your math course, and hopefully this video can help you in some way. So the first thing I tell my students is, if this thing is not in the correct form, it has to be put in the correct form. And everything after that, if it's not in the correct form, is going to be wrong. Well, some of it after that might be wrong. So let me rewrite this thing. So 4y plus 12 equals f of negative 1 over 3 x plus 2. So what you notice here is we're shooting towards this form. Y equals a f of b x minus h plus k. So that's my preferred form to work with. There are other forms, but this is the one that I like to work with. And what you'll notice here, of course, is y is by itself. That's the first thing you might notice. Also, you're going to notice is that there's a double brackets inside here. So the b value, which is related to the horizontal stretch, not the horizontal stretch, but related to it, is on the outside of the brackets. So when I do this, the first thing I want to take care of is that little thing, because that's so easy to forget. It's really easy to forget, and if you forget it, you're going to mess up that h value. At the same time, while I'm doing that, I'm also going to try and get rid of the 4 that's in front of my y. If I want the y to be by itself, I don't want anything in front of it, so I'm going to take out that 4. So I basically just factor it. So I take the 4 on the outside, and then I get y, and then 12 divided by 4 is just 3, so it's y plus 3 inside the brackets. So it's getting a little bit closer. Y is by itself. Well, close to being by itself. We've still got the 3 there, and the 4 is on the outside, but we'll get rid of all that. And then we have to factor out this negative 1 over 3. So that comes outside. And this is not a typical factor. It's not like I'm going to try and take out what's best. It doesn't matter what is in front of the x. It has to come out, all right? So it doesn't even matter if it gives me a good number when I factor it or not, as long as the x is completely by itself, which now there's nothing in front of it, all right? So I've got to divide this 2 by negative 1 over 3. So if you have a calculator, you can do it. But really it's simple when you're dividing by a fraction like 1 over 3 or 1 over 4. It's the same as multiplying it by whatever number's in the denominator. Okay, so if I divide this 2 by negative 1 over 3, it's like, well, 2 times 3 is 6, and if we put the negative on there, it becomes negative 6, so it's minus 6. So again, you got to sort out in your own head how to do that, whether it's a calculator, mental math, old school, write it out, flip and multiply, whatever. That's not a video on this. This is just about rearranging them, all right? So now that we have that done, we want to take care of this 4. So you notice we're going to have to divide both sides by 4, but the only number here outside the f is a. So when I divide both sides by 4, like this, really what I'm doing is I'm dividing the 1 that's in front of this to make it my a value, like that. All right? So we end up, so whatever you divide with on this left-hand side goes in front of the f, basically. And we want to do that to make sure that we keep everything in this form with the a in front. So my a value turns out to be 1 over 4. I'll make sure I rewrite this. It's really easy to make a mistake when you're rewriting. And then the y is still not by itself on the left-hand side. We have this 3, so I'm going to subtract that now from both sides, and that's like my k value. So I have y equals to 1 over 4, f of negative 1 over 3, x minus 6 minus 3. All right? So now we've got it rearranged. Probably the hardest part of this is being able to rearrange it, and it's such an important skill. The next part is just describing what this actually means. So what I like my students to do is actually write out all the values of what all this stuff means. So I'll drag this guy down because it really helps us. So if you look at it, basically where each parameter is, that's the values of each of these things, right? So if you look at where a is on the outside of f, well, that's my value of a. So my a value is 1 over 4. My b value is inside the brackets and outside the double brackets, but inside the overall big bracket. So my b value is negative 1 over 3. Oh, not 2. Try that again. Negative 1 over 3. My h value is here subtracted off. So note that this is x minus h. So we want to take whatever this guy happens to be. What I tell my students is just think of the opposite. So subtract 6, so my h value is going to be plus 6. Now, if you want to really get a systematic way of doing it without having to think about that, what some people do is they actually take whatever's inside this brackets, so no matter what it is, and then set it up equal just like that. But to me, that's sort of like a bit of a waste of time. And you end up with negative 6 equals negative h, or h equals 6. So I just tell my students, think opposite, right? So I'm going to erase that because we don't really need it. And k, so it's plus k, this is minus 3. So when it's a plus here, we really don't have to think about changing the signs. All it is just k is negative 3. And there it is. So we've got our our 4 things that really help us describe the transformations. So we need to remember a few formulas now to be able to get this thing sorted out. So one of the formulas we need to remember is the vertical stretch is equal to the absolute value of a. All right, put that in your toolbox. You definitely need it. So if we take the absolute value of 1 over 4, of course, it's already positive, so that means our vertical stretch is 1 over 4. So depending on how particular your teacher is, they might tell you to do, write something like this. Vertically stretched myself up by a factor of 1 over 4. So in comparison to the original, this thing is shorter, right? It got shorter. For the horizontal stretch, we have to remember that horizontal stretch is 1 over the absolute value of b. Again, toolbox. So you remember what 1 over b means too. 1 over b means the reciprocal. So I'll put it in here and kind of go through the process of what it actually is. So 1 over negative 1 over 3 actually turns out to be negative 3. So what I tell my students is that from the b value to the actual HS value, you take the reciprocal. Now we do the absolute value, so we get 3. That negative means something, and we will have to talk about it, but right now we're just focused on horizontal stretch. So we would say horizontally stretched, horizontally. You guys know my weakness, which is English, horizontally, and I forgot the ED. Horizontally stretched by a factor of 3. So in terms of the graph, this time will be 3 times as long. All the x values will be 3 times bigger. The negative. What does the negative mean? Well, we know what the negative means. It means reflection. The question is it a reflection in the x-axis or a reflection in the y-axis? So if you're from Newfoundland and you're watching this video, then the word by is in your vocabulary, probably. Yes, by, right? So we put by after everything. So one of the things that I get my students to remember is X by. If I'm going into the woods by, I needs me X by. So that's my horrific Newfoundland accent, you know, faking it anyway. So I get my students to remember AX, BX, and all of a sudden my pen color changed for some silly reason. What's going on here now? All right, what's going on? Why is that all of a sudden doing that now? You spy. Anyway, I'll go with it. So AX, BY. What it means is if A is negative, there's a reflection in the x-axis, and if B is negative, there's a reflection in the y-axis. So if you're going to do your math test, you better bring your X by, because it tells you what the reflection means. So we have a negative B value, so that means there's a reflection in the y-axis. So we'll write that out. So reflection, and this thing is just going terrible. All right, pause. I think I got it left out. By the magic of YouTube, I'm back. All right. So yeah, if you're going to do your math test, you better bring your X by. So we got a negative B, therefore there's a reflection in the y-axis. So I'll write that out. Reflection in the y-axis. I love that little simple thing to remember, because the thing you need to remember is that the mapping rule and your reflections are exactly the opposite. So your A is in front of your Y and your B is in front of your X in the mapping rule. But the reflections work the opposite way. So maybe you can keep that straight, maybe you can't, but this is a little trick to help you out. So your H value is positive 6. So that means we have a horizontal translation. So a horizontal translation. So horizontal is left or right, positive right, negative left. Horizontal translation of 6 right. Some people call that a phase shift. I'm not one of those people. I reserve phase when we're dealing with physics, or sometimes I'll use it with sine and cos, but for me, phase is like a physics thing. But some teachers might use it, try to make themselves sound smart. The other thing is, we got the K value. So K value corresponds to the vertical translation. So vertical means up and down. So we got vertical translation of 3. Because it's negative, it's down. If it was positive, it would be up. All right, so that takes care of describing the transformations. Really important to be able to do. So if you're going to be graphing these things, you got to be able to sort out in your own head what all this means. And if you can't do that, you might be able to fake your way through graphing, but you're going to come across a harder question that's going to rely on knowing some of the basics of transformation. So we need to remember this kind of stuff. Now I got a couple minutes left in this video, and I want to take you through finding the mapping rule. So the mapping rule, the general form of it looks like this. 1 over bx plus h, ay plus k. So what I want you to remember, the reason why I do x by is because reflections work the opposite of the mapping rule. So you notice in a reflection, the a is in front of the y, but for a reflection, a negative a means a reflection in the x-axis. So I have a lot of students messing it up because they think where a is in front of the y in the mapping rule, that is a reflection in the y-axis, but it's not. So we use the x by for determining our reflections. It's our reflection rule, essentially. So all I got to do is put the numbers in here. So I'll put my b in. So remember, the 1 over b means taking the reciprocal of b. So all I do is negative 1 over 3. I take the reciprocal to the mapping rule, just like that. 1 over b means reciprocal of b. So negative 3x, and then h just plus 6. And that's really the only thing you got to worry about, is the b value for this. And then a is 1 over 4, y minus 3. All right, guys, this is the first of my functional translation videos or transformation videos. Hope this was helpful. Please ask me any questions you might want to do it. Drop it in the comments, or if you're one of my students, feel free to obviously message me however you want to. Thanks for watching. Like, share, subscribe, and I will see you guys in class. Peace!
A lot of boring math later.
Get the fork out of here.